Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Karen Gonzalez, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at CPP. I'll be moderating today's webinar. Today's webinar is scheduled for 30 minutes, and time permitting, we will answer questions at the end. Please send in your questions by using the questions function in the webinar controls. We are recording this webinar, and we will send it to you in the next couple of days. I would now like to introduce you to Craig Johnson. A proudly proclaimed data geek, Craig helps lead the data-related activities within the CPP Innovation Lab, a division of CPP, the Myers-Briggs company. This includes the development, validation, and deployment of client solutions, as well as product and data infrastructure design. Previously, Craig was a database manager and statistical analyst for a major university, a research consultant, and a research associate. Craig received his BA from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and his MA in Industrial Organizational Psychology from Xavier University. Now, I just want to give you a very quick intro to iLabs. The iLabs division was created in 2015 to develop personality and data-driven solutions based on market needs. From their research stemmed the VitaNavis platform, which is powered by the 60-item SuperStrong assessment. If you are familiar with the Strong Interest Inventory, the SuperStrong is derived from it and is backed by the same rigorous validity standards. Now I'd like to turn over the webinar to Craig. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you for the introduction, Karen, and thank you to everyone for attending. Before I begin, I wanted to provide a little bit more information about me. I've actually been working in the assessment industry or research-related jobs for the last 11 years. I'm trained as an industrial organizational psychologist. Early in my career, I specialized in selection and development. I helped create selection profiles for Fortune 500 companies, anything from meat cutters and truck drivers to managers, pharmaceutical drug reps, lawyers, and I once even created a profile for a university president. Spoiler alert for those on the phone who are working within the education field, sociability and the ability to work a room was actually really critical for a university president, which I thought was interesting. Beyond the psychological training, I also have a technical slant. My roles typically begin or evolve into bridging the gap between developers, research, and non-technical audiences. I joke that if things look simple and like it's not a big deal, I've done my job. I'm well-versed in different statistical packages such as SAS, SPSS, and R. I've dove into the world of machine learning with Python, scikit-learn, TensorFlow, and working with data. Particularly in the last several years, you have to become pretty facile at working with different data structures and different databases. So I'm pretty familiar with working with the usual suspects, such as text files, CSV, and Excel files, but I'm also familiar with working with relational graph and document databases and kind of interesting formats with different research projects as well, such as MRI data, ERP data, and behaviorally coded videos. And all of this research experience has left me with one key takeaway, and that is data is almost not worth having unless you can get to it and you can analyze it. And since I'm a founding member of the iLabs team, data research, being able to get to and analyze your data is one of the very core foundations of the VitaNavis system. And we're really passionate about being able to help you answer your questions with actionable data. And with that, we'll jump into kind of our roadmap. I'm going to spend a little bit of time going over 5 points. The first one is going to be our philosophy and why you should care about what we're doing. Next, we're going to move into data. You can't have the data guy and not talk about data at least a little bit. I have limited the data slides to about 2, so stick with me until we get to the examples if they're difficult for you. And we'll be spending the meat of our time going through dashboards. And this is probably what I'm most excited about. This provides examples of off-the-shelf insights that we'll be releasing to customers soon, as well as showcasing some custom solutions that we've developed for specific partners' questions over time. And fourth, we have a lot of cool things that are coming down the pipeline. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those future directions. And again, time permitting, we'll dive into some questions and answers at the end. Now, going back to my comment earlier, our platform has a real research and data slant to it. In fact, the real mission of VitaNavis was to help provide actionable insights to users and organizations. And we aim to do this through using assessments, surveys, data visualization, and data analysis. Now, this may seem obvious, and I'm biased, but I think this is a diversion from traditional history. So historically, in my opinion, the assessment industry has focused on individuals. You take an assessment, you get your results, and then you kind of have to figure out what it means or how to use it on your own. If you're lucky, you'll have a practitioner who can walk you through the results. In my opinion, historically, organizations haven't really leveraged the assessment data in aggregate. So what's held us back as an industry? I would argue technology, right? Traditionally, assessment industry used a lot of basic technology, paper and pencil and hand scoring. The process required a lot of human interaction and a lot of interpretation. If you wanted to aggregate or analyze data, it was a lot of work and it was expensive to do. Now, with the computer revolution, a lot of these things have been turned on its head. Paper and pencil have been turned to online, mobile ready, and in demand. You can take these on a plane or a subway. Technology has opened up more self-exploration routes. Results are becoming much more interactive with this different media, multimedia like videos. And it's all stored digitally, which makes data geeks like me really happy, which brings me to my next topic, data. So just remember, 2 slides, stick with me here. So just like mixing a bunch of different spices together can create entirely different dishes, mixing together different data can generate entirely different insights. And data is quickly becoming the organizational spice. For example, by mixing real-time course grades with student alert systems, you can create an intervention system, proactively identifying struggling students. As another example, we've worked with an organization who was mixing student interest data along with program offerings at the school and the Bureau of Labor Statistics job projections. By finding all this data, they were able to identify where they wanted to invest in program development in the future. Now, the real takeaway here is that by mixing different types of data together, you can get vastly different questions answered, which brings me to what kind of data do you already have on hand? Since the late 1990s, the computerization of paper forms has generated a data tsunami. Most important information is now stored in a digital format, which is great for data geeks like me. The problem is that the number of different data formats and locations out there make it difficult to connect all the pieces. This slide depicts some of the examples of these in the education field. The white text represents different data sources such as academic records, course evaluations, and financial aid data. The yellow text represents different data storage systems such as Excel, relational databases, platforms like Blackboard, Canvas, and even VitaNavis. My point is if you stop and you think about it, you probably have a lot more data in a lot more places than you realize. My hope is that your next question is, how do I connect these different data sources together for analysis to answer interesting questions? The concept here is simple and exactly what you would expect, right? We create a single location that houses or connects all the data together. Over the last several years, things like Hadoop have simplified the technology required to connect all these things together. And it's this data centralization that can be described in 2 terms that you may have heard before, and that is data lake and data warehouse. So what's the difference? It really comes down to data structure and how analysis ready the data is. A data lake has a raw influx of data. The data may not be totally structured. The data may not be processed. It may have missing values, unverified items, and it's just generally considered kind of dirty. In the data warehouse, the data has been processed for missing values, unverified items. It's much more structured, and it's just overall much more mature and ready for analysis. Now, which you have doesn't really matter. You'll end up at the same endpoint. It's really the amount of work that your data geeks have to do to be able to analyze the data. So the key is centralizing all that data to make it accessible to answer the questions that you might have. So now that we know how you have all this data, what are the questions that you have? Now, chances are, if you're not like me, right, you're not a data geek, all the data in different forms and different locations isn't exciting, it's a nightmare. And if you're like a lot of our partners, it's difficult to get a hold of that data, let alone find someone to help you analyze it. It's overwhelming. And that's why we're here to help. Remember, our goal is to try and provide actionable insights into our assessment data. That's why we've created dashboards which provide a simple way for you to connect data and drive action. And with that, we're going to dive into a demo. And this is our live site, so we're going to run without a safety net here, and we'll see what happens. So we'll log into our system, and we'll go up here into the administration panel. And this is going to bring up our new dashboard panel. And we're going to start down here with usage. Now, to begin, we'll start off looking at 3 off-the-shelf dashboards. These are usage, demographics, and the super strong. All the data here comes from Placement University. Placement University is a fictitious site that we use for demonstrations with clients and for conference presentations. Most of the data within Placement U consists of advisors and counselors, which we'll see in the data. So, as I mentioned, the first thing that we'll look at here is usage. Usage is a very simple idea that can provide very valuable insights. On this dashboard, we provide user counts such as students, advisors, and teachers. Next, you can see the assessment counts. And if we scroll through here, you can see all the different assessments that have come through here. And then at the bottom, we actually provide the total of the assessments as well. At the bottom of the page, we have the assessment usage. And you can see that the assessment usage over time, right? And you can see where there's different peaks and valleys. And if we mouse over, you can see specific pieces of information at each time point. We can actually highlight some of these and drill down a little bit further. And we can unhighlight some of these if we want to look at specific usage. So this provides us really good information that you can kind of look around and see what's going on. So why should you care? First, you know the basic of who is using the system. Second, you can go through and start identifying when they're using it, i.e. the peaks and valleys that occur during the year. And even more simply, are they using it? Like, we've been able to identify different rollout issues with organizations based on lower spotting numbers, when teachers and administrators didn't realize that the product had actually went live within their organization. Next, we'll move on to demographics. Demographics provide a snapshot of an organization. To that end, we provide the average age of people completing the assessment, the breakdown of males and females, as well as the breakdown of demographics. Again, why should you care? If you're like many of our partners and want to know the difference between the freshman class and the senior class, this information is really helpful because we can collect this data and use it to drill down later. We also have some partners who are using us to provide the demographic data back to them because it's easier to go through us than to actually go through their IT team. Now we're going to move on to the Super Strong. The Super Strong is one assessment on our system. If you aren't familiar with the Super Strong, it looks at a student's interest. I realize I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, so if you aren't familiar with the Super Strong or you have questions, please reach out to us. In my experience, a lot of the requests that we see coming in as far as aggregate assessment data comes down to what does our group look like. And in other organizations and other systems, getting this data can be a chore, and we're trying to bake that in so that it's easy for you guys to get at. So the first one that we're going to look at here is the general occupational themes. These are based on John Holland's work at the RIASEC, which breaks the world of work into 6 categories. If you remember, the Placement U consists of teachers, advisors, and counselors. And not surprisingly, these people are highly social and enjoy interacting with other people. My question for you would be, do you know what your students are interested in? Next, we'll drill down a little bit further, and we'll start looking at some of the basic interest scales. So basic interest scales drill into the interest a little bit more so that we can become more specific. Again, not surprisingly, the top basic interest scales for this group are counseling and helping, teaching and education, as well as healthcare services. And now we'll scroll down here to start looking at some of the personal style scales. These are personality-based characteristics looking at working style, learning environment, leadership, risk-taking, and team orientation. So what we'll do here is just take a quick look at some of these different results. And we see by looking at the working style that these people tend to prefer working with people, which makes sense based off of their interest in social jobs. The learning environment actually has a mixture of people who enjoy learning by listening and reading, as well as people who learn by doing. When we look at leadership style, this is interesting. They generally take charge, right? They don't lead by example, which is pretty interesting. Fourth, we look at risk-taking. A lot of the organizations that we work with are early adopters, cutting edge in the field. And these are people who enjoy taking risks, right? They want to try the new thing that's out there, and they want to try and push the envelope. And we tend to have a lot of conversations with our clients about how to play in the sandbox with them to answer their questions. Down here at the bottom, we also have team orientation. And we can see, again, not surprisingly, because they're based, more interested in sociability, they're interested in preferring to work in a team. At the bottom, we have built in something kind of unique into our system, which provides a feedback loop for the actual assessment. And this provides a feedback loop for us as well as you. When you receive your results, the students can go through and provide a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a neutral icon. And what our feedback shows is what I like to call the stair-step pattern. With the top basic interest scale having the highest degree of agreement, the next one decreasing slightly, and so on. And this makes theoretical sense. So we found this result over and over in different studies, and we think that this provides a simple way for you to go back and make sure that the assessment is working. We've also expanded on this and built more of a return on investment survey, which is for the super strong. Students can complete the survey to let you know what they think. It's 12 items, it takes 10 minutes, and you'll know instantly if they think the process was helpful. And now we'll start shifting into some of the custom solutions. Now, I work with a lot of smart people, and we have questions, but so do you. And back to our mission, we want to make sure that what we're doing is building things that help answer your questions. So these are going to be some of the custom solutions that we've manually created over the last 3 years, and we're currently working to migrate them to the online platform and make them available to others. So the first one that we're going to look at here is really looking at data segmentation. And we can do a lot of data segmentation just through using our promo codes. And our promo codes serve two purposes. First, they allow you to take the assessment. You enter the promo code, and then you can take the assessment. Second, they also provide an instantaneous way that creates a group. So you can create a promo code that can be used in a specific classroom or an incoming freshman class or a marketing or an outreach program. In this example, we see 5 different promo codes that we've used internally within our own group. The first promo code only has 1 user. Obviously, that outreach didn't work quite so well, so we're better off to just cut our losses. The second one is obviously the best of the group and provides a lot of good information about the interaction. Now, we can drill down into this a little bit more and figure out exactly what's going on. So if we look at the leadership style of the people who went in and completed the assessment, we can see again that the leadership style of our users are those who take charge. So why should you care? Let me give you a couple examples. By using promo codes to segment your research, you could identify the best feeder schools for biology, anticipate influxes of computer science students, and create VitaNavis classrooms, which help highlight the interest and learning styles of the students in your class. Now we'll move on to the job market. And this example comes from working with a client and their question of what aren't we anticipating? And across the bottom, we have the reset codes again. And across the left, we have the percentage of people in each group. We have 4 bars. We have one representing the job market from 2014, which was the most recent data at the time. We have the projected US job market in 2024. And we also have an archival sample of 18-year-olds. And finally, we have a high school sample from California. So why should you care? The results here show a high degree of interest in artistic type jobs in both the archival and the sample school. The problem, if you look at the government data, there's not a lot of opportunities or anticipated growth in artistic type jobs. Now, we're not saying that we should go through and crush people's dreams, but we may want to encourage them to consider different ways to try and express their artistic interest. Consider things like becoming an art teacher or a music teacher. On the flip side, if we look at enterprising, we have a high degree of growth and lower amounts of interest. The question for us is there a way that we can pique someone's interest for this growing sector? Next, we'll look at the 4-year versus technical school. A common question that we get is there a difference in interest between a 4-year school and a technical school? At least the data that we're looking at here says yes once it loads. Technical student or technical college are more aligned with realistic, conventional, and enterprising, whereas a four-year school is more aligned with investigative, artistic, and social. Now, you may wonder, why is enterprising more technical? And my take on this is it could be because of small business owners, right? So if you think of electricians, plumbers, mechanics, these are all more realistic type jobs, but they're also opportunities where people can go out and start their own business. So the question for me was, what happens if we mash up four-year, technical, job projection, and high school data? So if we start by unchecking the sample data, this now shows us the four-year versus a technical school and where the government projects job growth. Not surprisingly, technical schools have an edge in realistic and conventional jobs. 4 years have a little bit of an edge in investigative, artistic, and social. Now, let's add the sample school back in. And what's the story of the data telling us? We can see, what we see is an interest in realistic and conventional for some of these students. As the high school, we might want to make sure that we get in tech schools to come and talk to our students. So why should you care, right? So would you have predicted this without the data? Maybe, but I'm guessing probably not. So by mixing these different data sources, you can provide completely new insights. And finally, what we're going to look at here is workforce development. And this comes from working with a client in San Diego. San Diego Workforce Development has created 5 different priority sectors, and these are employers that are in the area to looking to hire students in the future. And the client question for us was, can we help make projections and nudge students where we know there's going to be jobs? And the answer is yes. So if we scroll down here a little bit, we'll see this first graph, which shows that the last 3 years, approximately 61 to 62% of the people are going to match up with one of the jobs. And if we scroll down a little bit more, we can actually drill down and figure out where they're most likely to match. So they're most likely to match with life sciences and healthcare. What's the smallest match? We're looking at clean energy and information and communication technologies. Why should we care? Again, this may be an issue of exposure. So if we can have companies come into different high schools in the area, maybe we can boost up the interest in information and communication technologies and clean energy. And with that, we'll hop back into our slideshow. So we have a lot of things that are in our development pipeline, and I want to spend just a few minutes to give you a preview of things to come. First, we have really just scratched the surface of dashboarding. We're continuing to build new dashboards to answer partner questions. We're very open to feedback. If you have ideas, feel free to type them into the chat window, email us, or give us a call. We'd love to hear from you on how to make things more actionable. Next, in the not too distant future, we'll be rolling out something called Guided Pathways. And this initiative is designed to help students through their educational life cycle, including things like K-12, early exploration, in higher education, looking at things like admissions and recruitment, enrollment and retention, academic counseling. And then we're actually starting to get into some of the career and career counseling as well. Next, we feel like there's a lot of value in including the personality component in education. While the Super Strong will help you identify a path of interest, we hope that the CPI 260 Student Success Profile will help you stay on it. It'll help you identify personality characteristics to turn up or dial back while you're in school. We have 3 main categories looking at growth mindset, self-sufficiency, and task completion. We've researched this topic with a partner who included it in their first year experience course. In the lower right-hand corner, you see some of the subset of results that we've seen. And we see a direct relationship with course grade, overall GPA, failing or retaking a course. And our idea is to try and use this personality data to help nudge students where they may need a little bit of help along the way. We're also starting to look a little bit at user interaction data. This includes how users are exploring their results and what we can do to make it better. These include things such as identifying majors that are rarely explored or students searching for jobs that we may need to add. Another one of my interests and something that I'm really excited about is we're beginning to use text analysis to help make better predictions of college majors. What you're seeing on the left-hand side here is, as we've gone through, we have the 6 basic interest scales, and then these are mapped out based on text and results, which majors they may be most interested in. 2 weeks ago, this didn't exist. 1 week ago, we hit a point where we can probably start looking at rolling it out, and these are going to provide better results for our students and more ability to customize based off of the different schools' offerings. So I know I went through this pretty quickly. We probably tried to cram way too much in, but we're particularly excited about helping you answer your questions and making sure that the data is actionable and accessible to you. And with that, we'll open it up for a few questions here at the end.
Thanks, Craig. I got a couple of really good questions that I'm hoping we can get answered in the next few minutes. So the first one is, what do you tell students who get opposite results on super strong versus the strong interest inventory?
Sure. So I think it's important to think about the way that this was created. And what we did was we actually went through and created this based upon the strong results in conjunction with the shorter results. It's pretty rare that this will actually happen. And I think if it does happen, it's really important to identify why that was happening, right? Were they answering in a completely different fashion? Were there specific questions that they may not have understood the first time or when they went through and took it the second time? And I'll also say this, right? There's some interest in people using the super strong, but there are also people who really enjoy using the classic strong. And there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're comfortable with using the classic strong, we've also built that into the VitaNavis platform, where you can go through and you can take the classic strong and get the classic strong sort of results out of the assessment as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Craig. And the other question is also, I thought it was a really good question. It's how are colleges interpreting this information for students? They seem lost when taking it on their own, but we want this to be helpful, but not take the same time as when we administer the strong interest inventory assessment. So what you call the classic strong.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great question. So what we're really trying to do is make this much more self-interpretable. We realize that a lot of the issues that we see in higher education is just the amount of resources that are available. The student ratio with students to advisors is way out of whack. So what we're trying to build into the process is the ability for the student to go through, take the assessment, get the results, and do some level of self-exploration. And we've seen at different universities where they're actually doing more of a group level interpretation, right? So you go through, you do some self-exploration, and then you go in as a group, and as a group you go through and you talk about some of your results. And that kind of helps alleviate some of the different ratio issues of students to advisors. So the idea is by, changing some of the interaction that you would typically have with the assessment, thinking about new ways to do interpretations and trying to make it more actionable in that way is what we're trying to do.
Great. And we got one more follow-on question. So this was in relation to what you mentioned about having the classic strong on the VitaNavis platform. And she asked, how can we do that? So how to build a classic strong onto VitaNavis platform, how can we do that? So just to make a distinction for our customers here is you have the Elevate platform, which is where what you currently use for the MBTI strong and any other assessments that you have through CPP. And VitaNavis is actually a separate platform where we are housing the super strong and, like Craig mentioned, the strong interest inventory assessment as well. So that's something that we will be giving you, we'll be sending out an email to all of you that attended, and we'll be giving you an access code to actually try the super strong assessment on this platform. So you get a little bit of kind of that feel for the platform. And then if you would like to do a demo with one of our team members here, we're happy to do that just to kind of show you a little bit more of the ins and outs of this platform and to also show you, what the differences are there. So thank you, Craig. So I think that was it. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that attended today. We really appreciate the time that you take out of your day for being here and listening to us. And Craig, you did a really fantastic job, so thank you very much. And so for everyone, please look for an email from us where we're going to send you a link to this recording. So if you wanted to review all the content that Craig presented to you today. And we'll also be sending you, like I mentioned, a special access code, or what we call the promo code, to be able to trial the Super Strong assessment for yourself. So it's 60 questions. It should take you less than 10 minutes to complete, and you'll be able to see your results, and you'll be able to kind of see that interactivity that Craig was talking about. And to get a full demo of the platform, please feel free to contact us. I put our email in the chat box, but I will also include that in the follow-up email, but it's studentsuccess@cpp.com. So thanks again, everyone, and thank you, Craig, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care, everyone.